This is VOA Africa.
Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Wednesday, June 10th. This is Africa 54. Due to the global outbreak of COVID-19, Voice of America is taking every necessary precaution to safeguard its employees. So our broadcast will look a little different today and in the near future as we, out of an abundance of caution, reduce our staffing at VOA headquarters here in Washington. We're working to help keep you informed about what's going on, and we appreciate you staying with us on Africa 54. We begin with the death of Burundian President Pierre Nkurunziza, who died Tuesday just months before he was due to step down. Here's David Doyle with the latest.
Burundi's outgoing president Pierre Nkurunziza has died, the government said on Tuesday. In a statement released on Twitter, authorities announced the, quote, unexpected death with great sadness, adding that the 55-year-old had suffered a heart attack. Nkurunziza, who faced widespread accusations of political oppression during his 15 years in power, was due to step down in August. Last month, Burundi elected his replacement, retired General Evariste Ndayishimiye. Nkurunziza was to take up a new role as Supreme Guide of Patriotism. According to the statement, Nkurunziza had watched a game of volleyball on Saturday afternoon, but felt ill that night and was taken to hospital. His health improved on Sunday and he spoke to people, it said. But on Monday, his health, quote, suddenly deteriorated and he had a heart attack. Doctors tried to resuscitate him over many hours but were unable to save him. The statement did not specify exactly when he died. The government has now asked people to remain calm and announced 7 days of mourning. According to Burundi's constitution, the President of the National Assembly is now supposed to take over.
That was David Doyle of Reuters reporting. The government of Burundi says President Pierre Nkurunziza died Tuesday at the age of 56. He joined politics during Burundi's bloody civil war in the 1990s and served 3 terms as Burundi's president beginning in 2005. His decision to run for a controversial 3rd term in 2015 triggered protests and violence that left hundreds dead and prompted hundreds of thousands of Burundians to flee the country. Nkurunziza was due to step down in August after his chosen successor, General Evariste Ndayishimiye, won a 2020 presidential election that opposition candidates say was unfair. For more on Nkurunziza's legacy, VOA's Jason Patinkin spoke to international crisis groups Nekele Vandevale.
Now that President Nkurunziza has died, can you give an overview? What do you think is the legacy that he leaves behind?
It's a bit mixed, to be honest. When you look at Pierre Nkurunziza, I think what he represented during his reign was really the Bush generation that fought during the Burundian Civil War, that came into power after Burundi's troubled post-colonial era. That's a bit mixed. But then what we also see is that Nkurunziza was not able to unite, to keep the party united during the 2015 political crisis. So there was an attempted coup d'etat in 2015. Nkurunziza decided to try for a contested 3rd term, which he won. Then the rest of his reign was characterized by human rights violations. So a lot of people had to flee the country. Civil society actors were unable to act. International media and national media found it very difficult to operate. So that really divided and scarred the country. But then on the other hand, you can also see that at the end of his term, he was willing to step down. So in January, his party, the CNDD-FDD, elected a new candidate for the presidential elections, Evariste, who was indeed elected 2 weeks ago in the elections. And that showed that Nkurunziza, and that's why we can say it's a bit of a mixed legacy, because despite what happened before, he seemed willing to step down in the end.
And now looking forward, he was already going to be leaving power, but he wasn't going to be leaving entirely. Now that he has passed away, what impact might that have on the political situation in Burundi?
Yeah, I think that's a bit too soon to tell. He was indeed supposed to leave office on the 21st of August, Now what we see is that there will be, the President of the National Assembly will be President ad interim. So in this period between the elections and the new President Evariste assuming office. But Nkurunziza, indeed, he was supposed to become the supreme guide of patriotism, meaning that most people expected him to remain influential despite a new president assuming office. It remains to be seen what happens next.
That was VOA's Jason Patinkin speaking with Nekele Van de Valle of the International Crisis Group. The death of George Floyd in police custody launched massive worldwide protests over racial injustice and calls for changes in police conduct. Now, members of the U.S. Congress are examining national police reform proposals, while local and state officials announce more steps to change funding and authorizations for the use of force in their police departments. The House Judiciary Committee is hearing Wednesday from Philonis Floyd, brother of George Floyd, who died as an officer held a knee to his neck for almost 9 minutes. Other Judiciary Committee witnesses include Houston Police Chief Art Acevedo and Vanita Gupta, former head of the U.S. Justice Department Civil Rights Division and current president and CEO of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. Family members, politicians, and celebrities mourned George Floyd at his funeral in Houston, Texas on Tuesday. An African-American, Floyd died in police custody in Minneapolis on May 25th. His death has sparked protests across the United States and in many other countries. VOA's Michael Sullivan reports.
A private ceremony with hundreds of people inside the Houston church and many more along the route to the cemetery. The funeral service was broadcast on all major U.S. networks. The presumptive Democratic presidential nominee joined via video.
We cannot leave this moment thinking we can once again turn away from racism that stings at our very soul.
Houston police officers saluted as the casket entered the church. 4 officers in Minneapolis faced charges in Floyd's death, one of them charged with murder.
Until the law is upheld and people know they will go to jail, they're going to keep doing it because they're protected by wickedness in high places.
A Houston police official called this a watershed moment.
And I really believe that there's a great hope here in this city, and that hope is spreading nationwide.
This was the 3rd memorial in states where George Floyd had lived: Minnesota, North Carolina, and Texas. Monday, thousands came for a public viewing of the body in Houston. Tuesday, his family grieved.
I want justice for my brother, my big brother. Everybody gonna remember him.
And grapple with questions raised by his death. Mike O'Sullivan, VOA News, Los Angeles.
As protests over the death of a black man while in police custody continues into its 3rd week, U.S. President Donald Trump again took to Twitter in posts that appear aimed at stoking division and glorifying police violence. White House correspondent Patsy Widakuswara looks at how Trump's combative approach might fare at a time when there is a remarkable national outpouring of empathy for the African-American community.
Video of a 75-year-old man shoved by police in Buffalo, New York went viral last week. The 2 officers involved have been charged with second-degree assault. But President Donald Trump reignited the controversy Tuesday, tweeting a video by a right-wing outlet presenting an unproven conspiracy theory that the man was trying to block police communication equipment. Trump accused him of being an Antifa provocateur, saying he fell harder than was pushed. Trump's tweet is the latest of a series of remarks that have stoked anger and racial division in a nation shaken with more than 2 weeks of unrest over the death of George Floyd, a black man who died after being in the custody of a white police officer.
This is not a president who is capable of looking at turmoil in the country and trying to find ways to heal wounds and bring people more broadly together. His success, as he has seen it, is built on attacking even more harshly anybody who's critical of him, and at trying to stoke divisions and excite his own narrower base.
A base that may be getting even more narrow. Recent polls show 76% of Americans, including 71% of whites, call racism and discrimination a big problem in the U.S. compared to 50% in 2015.
A lot of white Americans are waking up to the reality that they were part of a system that maybe privileged them, but that has some pretty horrible implications for social justice and for everyone else.
A survey also shows that 78% of Americans support the protests and 57% believe police officers are more likely to treat Black people unfairly. This shift in attitudes has contributed to change on the ground. Some mayors have agreed to redirect police funds towards social services, an idea perceived as radical just a few years ago. But meeting with law enforcement officials Monday, Trump rejected calls to defund the police and the notion of institutionalized racism in law enforcement.
Sometimes you'll see some horrible things like we witnessed recently, but 99, I say 99.9, but let's go with 99% of them are great people.
The White House press secretary says Trump is combating racism by ensuring economic opportunity for Black Americans and pushing for criminal justice reform. The president has spoken to George Floyd's family on the phone, but has not met with Black community representatives or protesters. His election rival Joe Biden has met with Floyd's family and Black leaders. While polls show Americans view Biden as more empathetic than Trump, the Democratic presidential nominee has his own challenges.
He's going to have to walk a fine line, getting support, as he has in the past, from law enforcement officials, while also making the strong call for dramatic transformation in how we deal with police and police violence in the country.
Biden has denounced rioting and also rejected calls to defund the police. He is focusing on police reforms and has pledged action to reverse systemic racism. Patsy Widakuswara, VOA News, Washington.
Dr. Anthony Fauci, the top U.S. infectious disease expert, describes COVID-19 as his worst nightmare, saying the disease spread around the world with surprising speed. The New York Times, reporting on Fauci's speech to biotechnology executives, says Fauci warns that the pandemic, quote, isn't over yet, despite many countries in Europe, the United States, and Africa starting to ease restrictions. Fauci says he was surprised at how fast coronavirus spread after emerging from China in December. Most efficiently transmitted diseases can become a pandemic between 6 months to a year, but Dr. Fauci says COVID-19 took only 1 month. Meanwhile, the Moroccan government says it will start easing restrictive measures imposed to curb coronavirus infections, but delay a full lifting of the state of emergency until July 10th. Morocco has been on lockdown since March 20th. Officials there are confirming almost 8,500 coronavirus infections, including 210 deaths. Today, in our series COVID-19 Diaries from Cameroon, we meet Ayangma Theodore Pepper, General Manager of Atepec Auto, a garage located in Foda district of Yaoundé. He explains how the COVID-19 crisis affected his business and how he had to adapt to new realities.
My name is Ayangba Theodore Pepin. I'm the general manager of Atepec Auto Group. The lockdown has had a very serious impact on my personal life and on my business. Because when the confinement started, people stopped coming back to work because of the confinement. So we had delays in shipments and late payments. If we need important documents, they tell us it's delayed because of the 2 weeks lockdown. Whoever has to pay us, they say it's delayed because of the confinement. The companies we work with had to close and are having difficulty paying us. Usually we order a lot of parts. We are out of parts because of the confinement. As long as transportation and airports are closed, it will be difficult. As long as the borders are closed, it will be really difficult. We have no more replacement parts for our vehicles. We have ordered, but there are no more parts. As for Cameroon in general, the country is okay. We try to follow the rules in place the best we can.
On est obligé de respecter
We have to respect the authorities and their rules.
Quand l'autorité dit de fermer à 18h, on n'a pas
When the government says to close at 6 p.m., we have no choice. We have to close. I'm telling you, this lockdown has impacted our society and our personal and professional lives.
Nous faisons tout ce que le gouvernement demande de faire.
We do whatever the government asks us to do. We have a dish there for hand washing. There is soap. There is sanitizer. I have my mask here. I can put it on now. I have my mask, and then I also have my staff. Everyone here has their mask, and everyone who comes here will have to wash and sanitize their hands. We have not yet received any aid from the government. Maybe soon. It's a joy because whoever was not working during the lockdown is working now. We were really stuck. It is truly a joy that the country is reopening.
On Thursday's episode of the COVID-19 Diaries, we'll hear from a young seamstress from Chad who is struggling to make ends meet due to lockdown restrictions, and she's asking the government for assistance. We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, a conversation with the creator of a COVID-19 contact tracing mobile application. We'll be right back after this break.
Hello, I'm Lynn Ormoudou, your VOA Health correspondent. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the World Health Organization says there are currently no drugs licensed for the treatment or prevention of COVID-19. And there is no proof that hydroxychloroquine or any other drug can cure or prevent coronavirus. The misuse of hydroxychloroquine can cause serious side effects, illness, and even lead to death. For more information on COVID-19, visit who.int or contact your local or national health authorities.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Amid protests over police brutality and racism that have broken out across the United States, experts say they are seeing an increase of targeted campaigns to actively spread disinformation. As Maria Proust tells us in this report narrated by Anna Rice, one aim is to undermine social cohesion by making people believe there is no objective reality.
Mariam Gagushashvili, who is from Georgia, says in discussions with her immigrant friends about the George Floyd protests, she noticed they tended to focus on the violence and looting instead of talking about the tragedy that led to the demonstrations. To counter this, Gagushashvili created a closed Facebook group for Eurasian immigrants where she talks about social and racial justice.
We are from the region that has experienced colonialism, experienced ethnic oppression, experienced police brutality, authoritarian government. But on the other hand, we haven't been in the shoes of Black African Americans who have for centuries have been through slavery, lynching, killings, police brutality that never goes punished.
These issues of racial and social justice have been targets of disinformation campaigns spread on social networks. The aim to fuel racial bias by using fake news and manipulation. A recent example was the DC Blackout Twitter hashtag that falsely claimed authorities blocked the signals of cell phones and other devices during a Washington, D.C. protest to stop the reporting of any incidents of police brutality. Alex Engler is with the Brookings Institution.
the DC Blackout Campaign and the other propaganda campaigns that we saw surrounding the DC protests do certainly feel reminiscent of recent foreign influence campaigns that are oriented towards driving wedges between American citizens in particularly polarizing issues.
The Washington Post newspaper reported the DC Blackout Campaign was started by an account with just a few followers and then exploded in popularity as it was pushed by fake accounts. The goal is to confuse people so they can't tell what's real and what is not, says Patrick Warren of Clemson University.
Let's go back to 2016 and the IRA the Internet Research Agency operation in 2016. We saw accounts on both sides of the political spectrum, both of them attacking the media, one from the left, one from the right.
Warren says disinformation can be more dangerous when it comes to topics like vaccinations or the COVID-19 pandemic.
What is the transmission rate of COVID-19? I have no idea. People don't really know. It depends on all kinds of things. And it makes that uncertainty leads to a breeding ground for disinformation.
Experts say social media platforms are getting better at taking down fake posts and blocking bots. But such posts still appear, especially in the middle of large social movements.
If you were already protesting in DC, you were already very angry, understandably, at police brutality, you were more likely to be critical of government action and very prepared, especially after these violent police-citizen interactions, you were particularly primed to believe that the government would do something as extreme as cutting off all the communications and then doing something nefarious to the protesters.
Both experts agree that it is impossible to completely get rid of disinformation, but it helps to try and manage disinformation outbreaks. They advise people to pause and assess what they're reading and examine their own internal biases to prevent being manipulated. For Maria Prus in Washington, Anna Rice, VOA News.
In our tech report, health experts say app-based contact tracing is appealing in part because the coronavirus spread is so stealthy. Infected people can transmit the virus for days before they develop symptoms. An Eritrean-born American has launched an Android app called Tracker that tracks users' locations and notifies them if they've been within a certain distance of someone who tested positive for COVID-19. For more insight, Africa 54's Paul Ndiho spoke to Baruch Habte, the creator of the contact tracing mobile application based in the U.S. state of Maryland.
Baruch Habte, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you, Paul.
You recently came up with this amazing tracker or tracing app. Bring me up to speed.
Well, Tracker is a contact tracing app that's available worldwide on all Androids. And the way I came about it is South Korea was effective with their contact tracing app. And I just asked myself, wouldn't it, be wonderful to have something, similar but work worldwide? And given the fact that the virus is everywhere at this point, it was only right that I develop such a thing.
How different is your app from some of these apps that have already hit the market?
Well, for one, this app is very easy to use. Registration alone takes less than a minute to complete. You only need your name and email, and you're already in. And the best thing about my app, which is Tracker, is if that person who traveled from China to the States had Tracker, that Tracker wouldn't just notify everyone in China that person came in contact with, but it'll also contact everyone they came in contact with in the process, including in the States. That way, people can take their own measures at an early stage.
A young man from Eritrea, how did you come about with this amazing application?
I looked at what South Korea and their application were able to do, and I wanted to ask myself, how can I do that while making it available for not just people in South Korea or just people in the States, but also people in every single country, especially countries that are that can't afford to have this virus around, especially a lot of countries in Africa.
Are there any countries in Africa that are already using your apps, or in terms of numbers, how many people have registered or are using your application right now?
As far as Africa, we have a lot of users in Africa. I can tell you the countries, and Nigeria, Ghana, Sudan, Ethiopia, South Africa, and a few other countries just in Africa alone.
It's interesting that you don't mention your own country, Eritrea.
Well, it's also available to folks in Eritrea, but the good thing is at the moment, Eritrea is completely negative from the virus. They had a few cases, I think about 38 or 39, and about a week ago, they actually just made it public that everyone that was quarantined came out healthy, and they haven't had single fatalities. And at this moment, I think they remain one of the few countries without the virus.
Brooke, have you tried to reach out to different research institutions, different states or governments that can potentially maybe partner with you and take this up to the next level?
Well, I'm actually in the process of doing that. And I really welcome that with open arms because, like I said, this is something that can benefit the world as a whole. And I think those health institutions or governments you mentioned could really play a huge role in that.
What does it take to have your app? Is it a free app? Is it paid? And where can people find your app?
It's actually completely free. There's no in-app subscription or pay for download. It's all free once you download it. It's available on Androids worldwide. But to make it easier, I always recommend that people go to the website, our website, which is www.letstrackcovid.com.
When you said that the app right now is only open to Android users, are you not limiting yourselves in terms of reach or scale? When are you going to open it up to maybe other operating systems like iOS?
Well, that's a good question, Paul. iOS or Apple has very strict guidelines to follow for their developers when developing such applications. And we found it to be more challenging in a way. But we were able to complete the Android version faster than we expected. That's why we were able to release it, as opposed to waiting for the iOS version to be completed than to release both together. So right now what we're doing is, while getting all the feedbacks and performing our testing on the Android version, we are working on the iOS version as well, and we hope to have that out soon.
Thank you so much, Brooke.
Thank you, Paul.
That was Africa 54's Paul Ndiho speaking to Baruch Habte, creator of the mobile app tracker. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thank you for watching.